Philly is hoping one guy becomes available, and that's Damian Lillard. And he might not become available because Portland, it was reported that they are all in on building around Damian Lillard. And Dame has not tweeted or talked to any reporter about leaving Portland. In fact, everything he said thus far is alluding to him staying in Portland and wanting to build a winner still. And is this the right move, or should Portland try to blow it up and rebuild now? I think we've been asking this question for a while, either trade Dame or CJ. They made some okay moves in the offseason, getting Cody Zeller, Larry Nance Jr., Ben McLemore, but they lost Enes Kanter, Carmelo, and Zach Collins. What do you think? Do you think it's the right move that they're trying to build around Dame still, or should they blow it up right now?
I think, when your franchise player establishes that he wants to be there, he establishes that this is my home, I want to win one for Portland, I'm staying. He gives you that confidence. He gives you that satisfaction that he wants to stay. I think the only choice you can make is we're going to do our best to build around him. I don't think blowing it up at this moment and losing a guy who, let's be realistic, Portland, aside from Bill Walton, Clyde Drexler, who else? Who else? They had Brandon Roy. He was hurt. Greg Oden, he got hurt. Dame Lillard has been.
Tracy Porter? Is that the point guard, right?
Tracy Porter.
Terry Porter.
Terry Porter.
No, he played with Clyde.
Yeah, he was a good player.
Yeah, but I'm saying guys who are definitively, I'm saying Dame is one of those. He's one of them. He in Portland history, his name is going up in the rafters. His jersey is going up. He's going to be a Portland legend. He's a top 3 player for their franchise ever. So you have an opportunity to keep him here. Because let's be realistic, if you trade him, you're going to have to go back through the draft. Nobody's coming to Portland. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's coming through the Portland via free agency. You're going to have to go back to drafting and hopefully landing another Dame or Brandon Roy or a Grego. And they've been lucky that just injuries have, messed them up. So I think in that sense, when Dame said that, you have to kind of build around him. And like you said, they've made some okay moves. It's hard to do it with the team that they have right now. I think the best way to build around Dame is get him a 3-and-D elite wing, kind of somebody like a Jaylen Brown type of player or like a Paul George type of player and a really good big. I think somebody that will complement. I don't think Dame and CJ complement each other because they both score and don't play defense. I think you need a guy or Steph and Clay. You need somebody that complements your game. If I don't play D, you play defense. If I play on ball, you're off ball, something like that. So I think that would benefit Dame.
I definitely think it's the right move because Damian's obviously a top player in this league. You don't want to just move off of him. But I will say, outside of Damian and McCollum, this roster is not all too impressive to me. Norman Powell is a solid ball player. I feel like that's the most I can say about that in terms of skill-wise. You look Robert Covington, again, a solid ball player. He's a good role player. Nurkic, he's a talented dude, but can he really stay healthy consistently? It seems as if every season there's something new with him. Bench-wise, and Fernie, Simmons is not bad. Simons. I got his name all messed up. Tony Snell obviously is not that great. This team is just not deep at all. I just think overall one of the two needs to be traded, and if that's the case, CJ has to go. And you mentioned it. They're not going to get anyone in free agency. You see, Beal's going to be a free agent this upcoming season, and I doubt he's going to want to come to a team like this, especially with the fact that defensively they need something different.
Beal wouldn't work.
No, Beal wouldn't. It's similar to C.J. McCollum, but obviously Beal's a better scorer than what C.J. is. But realizing that, you need to be aware of it and be conscious of, all right, these two don't work. I need to make a move. I want to keep Dame because he's obviously the better player, but C.J. McCollum, he's a very good ball player as well, but he's not getting the job done for us, which is the ultimate goal. Winning a championship, being successful in the playoffs. They've had some success in the playoffs, but it's never correlated to winning the championship. So I think moving CJ would probably give them some decent assets. I'm not too sure what they could possibly get in return that would, equate that. I mean, sure, Ben Simmons, but I don't know if Philly's going to be willing to do that, or maybe if that's what it comes to for Philly, maybe that'll be their best option. But you mentioned it. They need defense. Their only identity right now, in my opinion, is get the ball to Damian Lillard, let him do something special, and hope that he can pull it out for us in the end. And we saw that against Denver when he was unbelievable.
They lose that game?
He lost in double. I think it was double
CJ
overtime.
Stepped out of bounds. Something like that.
He just has minimal help offensively, defensively. He's not helping the team either all too much. So I think that's got to be the option for Portland because you mentioned it. They're not going to get anyone in free agency.
Wild shots that game.
The turnaround off the bank, that was ridiculous.
The Blazers got better this offseason. I mean, they lost Melo, sure. They lost Enes Kanter, Zach Collins. Zach Collins didn't play at all for them last year. Enes Kanter is not a good defender, and Carmelo is not a good defender. Do I think Cody Zeller is at least the same tier, if not better than Kanter? I do think so.
Agreed.
Do I think Larry Nance at this point is better than Carmelo? I do think so. I think Larry Nance is a better player. And then Ben McCollum, I think he's also a guy who has been reviving his career as of late, especially with Houston. Although a lot of people look good with Harden, but then when they leave him, they don't look that good.
I told you he was going to bring him up.
Mm-hmm. You look at Kenneth Faried. Kenneth Faried averaged 15 and 10 with Harden when Capella was out, and now he hasn't been in the league since. He was with Portland's summer league team. You look at Ben McLemore, he was averaging close to 10 points in Houston in D'Antoni's system. You know, Mike D'Antoni leaves Harden, Westbrook leave. Now McLemore is still looking for a job. And I think their team is better now, having Nance and Covington being those defensive anchors, even though Covington, I think, has become one of the more overrated defenders and players in the league. People view him as a great 3-and-D guy, but in reality, his on-ball defense isn't very good. You said something the other day that I disagree with. I actually think he's better suited as a forward because he doesn't have the lateral quickness to guard threes. That's why I think Covington is better suited at the 4.
I think they have Nance now.
And then offensively, Dame, CJ, they're primarily ISO guys, and they get a lot of their assists off of kickouts and just driving to the basket and penetrating. And Covington didn't have a very great season last year with Portland, not like he did in Houston, because like I said, Harden takes so much pressure off of you when you play with him that he makes you absurdly better. Covington was averaging 2 blocks a game in Houston.
That has something to do with Harden?
That has nothing to do with Harden.
Just being on the court with Harden just gives you more energy to play on defense.
So what about Tucker? He left Harden.
And he won a chip.
And Tucker was a 40% 3-point shooter with Harden. And it wasn't until Tucker got to Houston where he became.
Then he left, and then he
won
won a chip.
I'm asking. He left playing Harden. Oh, actually, never mind.
Won a chip.
Never mind.
Without him, bro.
I guess
you win when you leave.
PJ Tucker's an outlier because he's a superstar in his own right.
What about Chris Paul? He left, had some success.
Finals. Look at that. Wow,
that's cool. That was the second time he actually made the WCF.
And he made the finals before Harden.
Oh yeah, that was the same guy you said that had an easy run too, right?
Yeah.
But don't disregard the facts. All right, don't just try and reverse it on him.
Yeah, don't try to backtrack.
So I'm saying a lot of the players, that have left Harden have not been so good. But let's just talk about Portland. I just think this team.
So wait, who do you think should start? What should be the star lineup?
I think it's Dame, CJ,
I think
Nance,
Powell should come off the
Covington,
bench.
and Nurkic. I think Powell does come off the bench, and he's that 6th man.
Start Nance
and Covington.
Nance at the 4.
Yeah, you need that defense. But in my opinion, I think that if I'm Portland, I would trade CJ because I think there isn't any way to get better outside of trading CJ.
I agree.
Is that going to be for Ben Simmons? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't mind starting Powell at the 2. And I think he's a better defender than CJ. He definitely gives more effort. So if you can have a starting lineup of Powell, Nance, Covington, and Nurkic, I think that's much better around CJ. That's why I kind of think that them trading away Gary Trent Jr. was a mistake because I think Gary Trent could have easily slotted into that starting lineup and averaged 18 for them off the bat.
And he doesn't hold the ball too much.
Yeah, and Gary Trent Jr. also shows a lot of effort on defense as well. So I think it was a mistake for them, even though they did get Norman Powell out of that. I think Trent has a higher ceiling than Powell, and he's probably a better player right now than him as well. I just think that Portland right now is stuck, and I think Dame is making the wrong decision in wanting to stay in Portland, and I think Portland is making the wrong decision in trying to keep him there longer. I do understand they just got Chauncey Billups as the head coach, and they want to give him a chance to at least win. So I think this is the final year we're going to see Portland as we know them. Billups is going to get 1 year to try to win with this roster. If he can't win, I think we are going to see Dame leave. Unless they start off extremely bad this year and now Dame is asking out. But I think Billups is going to get 1 year to do this. And if he doesn't do it, I think one of them, well, Dame is definitely getting traded next year.
What do you guys think of CJ for Ben? What do you guys think a Ben Simmons Dame team would look like?
I think it would be great.
Like you would have him playing the 3 or the 4.
I would have him playing the either one.
Yeah.
And I'd have Nance come off the bench and Covington play the 4. And then I'd have Simmons, Powell, Dame, Covington, Nurkic.
That's a solid. That's solid.
I like it.
Yeah, that's a solid line. They should definitely do that. I mean, it's tough, man, because like you said, I feel like that loss to Denver really kind of put it all out there. Like this team, we thought, and I think we can all agree, we all thought this was one of the deepest teams they've had in a while last season. And I think me and Joel agreed trading Gary Trent at the time was a really bad move. We get it. Norman Powell, he's playing better. Maybe he probably was playing a little better at the moment, but Trent, you can see it. Like, he has that scoring ability, that defensive versatility. He was guarding LeBron in the bubble at one point for Portland. He's a really good defender. He's a floor spacer. He's a guy that doesn't need the ball in his hands. Norman Powell kind of gets a little too trigger happy sometimes. We saw that against Denver. And, losing to Denver without Jamal Murray, that was just like when you were big favorites, that kind of like set everything in table. Even Dame said it after the series in the press. We need a lot. I don't know why we lost. He was talking about it. He felt he looked sad, defeated, and we don't see that from Dame a lot. So, like you said, they're kind of like, this is 1 year. Chauncey gets 1 year.
Yeah, that Gary Trent Jr. trade was bad. Gary Trent Jr. is 22. Norman Powell's 28.
I think they didn't want to pay him.
Yeah, Toronto paid him.
Toronto gave him that money.
Which I guess is fair. He's a solid ball player, but I mean, are you going to get much better than Gary Trent Jr. right now?
No.
Not really.